Hi, I'm Denavia Moget.
And I'm Steve Ozinga.
And we are so excited to see you all on November 15th at the JW Marriott for the National Philanthropy Day Luncheon.
Please join us as we celebrate with our 7 fabulous award winners.
From Vicki Weaver of the Spectrum Health and Helen DeVos Children's Hospital Foundations,
The Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors,
Louise Punky Edison of the West Michigan Center for Arts and Technology,
Stephanie Kerr-Cathy from Kids Food Basket,
and Beverly Austin of Girl Get Your Fight Back,
Lake Michigan Credit Union,
and Janine Couch and the Grand Rapids Community Foundation Youth Grant Committee.
There are still tickets available. Please get them at the link below.
See you guys on the 15th.
There are hundreds of people in this room today who have dreamed, invested, and transformed their communities around them. And we wanted to spend just a moment right now introducing our 7 awardees who have dreamed, invested, and transformed as well, all within their own unique way, all making the world a better place. So as we announce your name, we just ask you to briefly stand. We'll be giving more information about the awardees in a little bit, and please hold your applause till the end. But these are 7 wonderful awardees. First of all, our Benjamin Franklin Award for Outstanding Fundraising Professional, Vicki Weaver, President of the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital Foundation and the Spectrum Health Foundation.
Our Outstanding Corporation Foundation or Community Award recipient today is Lake Michigan Credit Union, represented today by Matt Cook.
Beverly Austin, our Outstanding Volunteer Fundraiser, founder of Girl Get Your Fight Back. Where are you, Beverly? Right over there. Excellent.
For our emerging nonprofit development professional, Stephanie Kerr-Cathy of the Kids Food Basket. Where's Stephanie? Thank you, Stephanie.
Louise Punky Edison, Director of Special Projects for West Michigan Center for Arts and Technology, WMCAT, our President's Award winner.
Our Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award winners today are the Grand Rapids Community Foundation Youth Grant Committee, headed up by Janine Couch. Stand up, guys, all of you, stand up.
Yeah, it's our biggest group of the day, so it's kind of obvious. And last but not least, the West Michigan Chapter Award for Excellence in Fundraising, the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors. Seated right by Amy Acton, the Executive Director. So a round of applause for all of our awardees, please.
So where does that leave us today? November 15th, 2018. I'd say in a pretty good place. Steve and I checked, and today in this room we have over 570 people from over 160 different organizations. I want you guys to think about that. Look around. Almost 600 people in this room, representing over 160 organizations, and I want you to reflect on the potential of everyone working together to dream and invest and transform West Michigan. I know that smallpox and rinderpest have been eradicated, but what else is out there? So many other things.
Many in this room are already collaborating together and tackling those hard problems head on. But let's face it, all the easy problems have been solved already, right? What else is out there? What else can we work together on? What other challenges can we attack? Homelessness, educational disparity, gender equity, poverty, food and water security, lack of opportunity, race relations, disease, mental health, and many, many others.
And we bring this up today because we know that philanthropy plays a strong role in all of this. And let's face it, it's West Michigan. We're known for our philanthropy, right? And rightly so. Because in West Michigan, we understand that philanthropy, it just means love for humankind. And we understand that while monetary contributions are essential, we all need funds to make the causes, to move the causes forward. But so are investments of time and talent. And we're rich in that here in West Michigan. So today, when we think about philanthropy, we think about it as the neighborhood volunteer cleanup projects and the major capital campaigns. We think of it as the community activism, and we think of it as the endowments to the community foundations around us, from the 5K walks that support good causes to investing in student scholarships. We understand that philanthropy is found in pop can drives and playground build-outs. And philanthropy is just all around us. and its residents using whatever gifts that they have to contribute to making the world a better place.
So let's dream, invest, and transform together. But remember one thing, it is also okay to fail. It happens all the time. We don't succeed without failure, and frankly, we don't fail enough. Actor and comedian Will Ferrell at the 2017 commencement address at the University of Southern California addressed this issue head on when Ferrell confessed, and I quote, "My fear of failure never approached in magnitude my fear of what if? What if I never tried at all?" Well, what if we never tried at all? What are those big, bold, aggressive dreams that you have in your minds that you haven't shared with anybody, let alone tried? And what is holding you back? Here's to the ones who dream and succeed, but also here's to the ones who dream and fail and fall flat on their faces. Here's to everyone who sees the good in people. Here's to those who take a risk, go out on a limb, don't quite get the results that they wanted, oh so close. But here's to the lessons learned. Here's to next time. Here's to we got this. Here's to those who see the glass as half full, who can see the blue sky in the midst of a hurricane. And here's to everyone in this room today who day after day, month after month, year after year, continues to put their shoulder to the grindstone, invest their blood, sweat, and tears into our communities to make the world a better place. Thank you so very, very much.
There's a famous quote that's been circulating for years, and you all may have heard it. It says that there are two important days in a person's life: the day that they're born and the day that they realize why they were born. Today, I challenge you all to think about that quote and to ask yourself, have you achieved your second calling yet? Have you answered that second question? Do you know why you were born and the change that you were called to make in the earth around you? And as you find your place in philanthropy, to follow that calling. I wonder, and Steve and I talked about this, what people will say about us in the future. Let's face it, we are in a crazy time in history, right? In our country, in our communities, things are changing. But what will they say about the people that convened here tonight, 10 years from now, even 100 years from now? Will they say, by golly, they did a great job of maintaining the status quo. They did a hell of a job with maintaining existing conditions. That group was awesome, right? Or will they say that in 2018, we were the pioneers, the courageous folk who dreamed and dreamed again, failed, dreamed some more, and invested our talents, our gifts, and transformed West Michigan and transformed the world. Today, we're just here because we want to invite you. If you don't currently feel involved, if you don't currently feel invested, if you don't know why you're here at the National Philanthropy Day luncheon, and if you didn't even know it was National Philanthropy Day, we want to invite you to join us as we're inspired by our awardees today, the organizations that they represent, the work that they do, the impact that they have. We're inspired by our keynote speaker who is here in the hotel right now. I'm fangirling.
He's here. Yep.
He's here. And we want to invite you, everyone in this room, to just dream, to invest with us, and to transform the world around us the moment you leave this room.
We began with a quote from Pretty Woman, and I'm going to end with a modified version of that final quote from Pretty Woman. So cue up the man walking down Hollywood Boulevard at the end, but saying this instead: welcome to National Philanthropy Day. What's your dream? Everybody comes here. This is National Philanthropy Day. Land of dreams. Some dreams come true, some don't. Keep on dreaming. This is National Philanthropy Day. I'm Steve Ozinga, one of your hosts.
And I'm Denavia Moje.
So who is ready to get started with our first award? All right. Good job. All right. Our first award of the day, and we're going to do 4 of these before lunch. Please start eating your salads as well, too. So I'm honored to present our, if you've already done that already, it sounds like. I am honored to present our first award of the day, the Benjamin Franklin Award for Outstanding Fundraising Professional. It honors an outstanding individual fundraising professional who practices his or her profession in an exemplary manner, working directly for a nonprofit organization. And this year's awardee is Vicki Weaver, president of the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital Foundation and the Spectrum Health Foundation. Right now we're going to enjoy a short video about Vicki, and then we'll invite her to the stage.
To me, philanthropy means caring and taking action to make things better for other people. The reason I do what I do is it's all about the people at Spectrum Health. We have extraordinary people on the front lines providing care and hope and comfort and healing. Our patients and families are amazing. They're so willing and open to share the journey that they're going through with us. And also I get to work with incredible people, our donors, our board members, volunteers, and a very dedicated staff. And so for me, that's what it's about. That's what motivates me, that's what inspires me, that's what excites me every day to come into work. It's important to help the people on the front lines that are providing the services, the leaders, to appreciate the impact that philanthropy is making in the organization, what it allows them to do in serving their patients or their clients, and also to help them understand that there's a lot of joy that donors feel in their giving, and that happens when they know that they're making an impact as donors.
Please join me in welcoming Vicki Weaver to the stage, our outstanding fundraising professional.
Now, before we go any further, we want to acknowledge that we would not be here today if it were not for all of those who believed so deeply enough in our mission to sponsor this event. We want to give a heartfelt thanks to the Extend Your Reach team, this year's signature sponsor. All of the design and print elements for this event were created by this brilliant group at Extend Your Reach, and we're appreciative for their generous partnership. We'd like to recognize those from Extend Your Reach in the audience today. And as an added bonus, EYR is giving $1,000 of a worthy nonprofit organization here tonight. Details on how to nominate are on the inside cover of your program. I mean, aren't those centerpieces wonderful? The programs have custom printed your name on them. Let's give a round of applause for Extend Your Reach.
Our second award of the our second award of the afternoon is the Outstanding Corporation, Foundation, or Community Organization Award. This award honors a corporation that demonstrates outstanding commitment through financial support and through encouragement and motivation of others to take leadership roles toward philanthropy and community involvement. This year's awardee is Lake Michigan Credit Union, and we're going to watch a short video about LMCU right now, and then we'll welcome Matt Cook to the stage. So please enjoy the video.
Lake Michigan Credit Union was founded in 1933 by a Grand Rapids Public Schools teacher who recognized a need for access to capital and basic banking needs, including loans for his fellow teachers. And so he started, at that time, Grand Rapids Teachers Credit Union, which became Lake Michigan Credit Union. Today, our work in the community really honors his legacy. We're striving to give back to the communities that our employees and that our members live and work in, and it's at the core of who we are to honor Lloyd's legacy and memory, by being an important part of the community and supporting the many nonprofits and the work that's being done to make a difference in our community.
So a few years ago, WMCAT really took a risk and opened our first social enterprise, which was a commercial screen printing business where we were employing young adults as apprentices. And LMCU was one of our first clients, provided Catalyst funding, and really came out and said, we want to support young people learning how to run small businesses. And over the last 4 years, LMCU has been a consistent client of Ambrose, has worked with our young adult apprentices, and has really helped us sharpen that business and strengthen it.
There are a number of examples in our community of nonprofit staff members and organizations that are really doing impactful work, and they're not just settling for the status quo or just what's okay. They're really looking at what's going to make an impactful change in our community. And I would just encourage all of you that are doing this work to go out and continue to strive for that and make a difference and make positive change in our community.
Our outstanding corporation, foundation, or community organization, Lake Michigan Credit Union. Matt Cook, please head to the stage. Thank you. Yeah. How many of you have a mortgage with Lake Michigan Credit Union? That's why I said to Matt, half the room probably does. But yeah, I have had the honor of chairing the National Philanthropy Day Committee this year, but my greater honor has been working with 15 incredible individuals who have put their blood, sweat, and tears into making this event what it is today. And they didn't know I was going to do this, but I'm going to call them by name and have them stand up wherever they are. And you can follow along on the back of your programs. All the names are listed. LaLinda Cobb from San Juan Diego Academy. Ashley Dersch from Kids Food Basket. Laura DeLay from the Mary Freebed Rehabilitation Hospital Foundation. All right, back there. All right. Sarah Hotchkiss, Boy Scouts of America. Autumn Hubbard, Grand Rapids Civic Theater. Mandy Jocelyn, the Bissell Pet Foundation. Roxanne Kiesling, Hospice of Michigan. Carrie Quila, St. Mary's Foundation. Megan Lorenz from WMCAT. Sarah Marius from American Cancer Society. Brandon McBride, Grand Rapids Community College. Where are you, Brandon? There he is. All right, great. Denavia Moget, 97.3 The Beat Empowerment Radio. Already standing. Kristen Noss from Extend Your Reach over there. Ken Neville from the Reformed Church in America, but he is working in Bahrain or Qatar right now, so he does have an excuse built in. Deb O'Donnell, our fabulous chapter administrator, who's probably still out in the hallway making sure that our late arriving, yeah, there she is, right back there. The one and only Mary Panic, the AFP West Michigan treasurer. And last but not least, Becca Ryan from Canary Consulting. So please, a round of applause for the incredible host committee that helped put this on today. Thank you.
And a round of applause, this isn't on my script, for Steve Ozinga for pulling all of us together and making this happen. Up next, we are going to move on to our next award, the Outstanding Volunteer Fundraiser Award. The Volunteer Fundraiser Award honors an individual or family that demonstrates outstanding skills in coordinating and motivating groups of volunteers for fundraising projects for the benefit of charitable institutions. This year's recipient is Miss Beverly Austin of Girl Get Your Fight Back. Please enjoy a brief video about Beverly Austin.
Philanthropy Philanthropy to me is going beyond myself and going outside of myself to ensure that someone else can have a better quality of life, whether that be through finances or whether that be through my time and my talents. Well, specifically with Rock the Runway, that's my baby, and I target helping women specifically to increase awareness with breast cancer, and so especially in the urban community. And so my desire with Rock the Runway is to use fashion to educate women about the importance of knowing they're normal and getting checked. My proudest achievement is we've been in existence for 8 years now, and starting off Rock the Runway specifically with just 100 people, and last year we had over 500 people to attend our show. Last year, one woman actually found out after the show from getting checked that she had breast cancer, but she found it early enough. So my biggest achievement is that we're saving lives one woman at a time. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, didn't have much, and so what motivates me is seeing other women who don't have a lot, and that I'm able to do my little part to make sure that they have access. Access again to healthcare, access to information, access to good health. And so as we educate women to really embark upon great self-care, I also want them to know that their body is important, so taking time for them. And so my goal is to take the time that I have to give back to women so that they can know that they can have more and that they are important and that their health is super important.
Ladies and gentlemen, Beverly Austin. And now we'd like to take a moment to thank our grand sponsors. We'd like to extend a specific thank you to the Hopkins Fundraising Consulting Group, the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, the Spectrum Health Foundation, the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our grand sponsors.
All right, our fourth award before we break for lunch. It's a new category for us, the Emerging Nonprofit Development Professional. It recognizes an individual with less than 5 years of service in a nonprofit development role, demonstrating success, and somebody who has made a significant contribution to the nonprofit community. This year's recipient is Stephanie Kerr-Cathy from Kids Food Basket, Muskegon, and let's enjoy a brief video about Stephanie now. Thank you.
What motivates me is knowing that Kids Food Basket West Michigan is feeding over 8,000 kids a take-home nutritious meal at the end of the school day. Muskegon County specifically, we're feeding over 1,100 children in 4 different schools. That motivates me, knowing that we have 250 volunteers a week in Muskegon County that come through our doors to help us feed that many children that need access. Being a Muskegon-raised person, I love that we've been able to expand and grow our program in the last couple years. That's the right thing to do, it's the responsible thing to do, and it's because of our awesome leadership and their vision. It's because of our donors in Muskegon County that this has been so successful. It's because of the constant stream of volunteers that love our mission, that are giving back in so many meaningful ways. So for me, it's all about what we do as a whole team and as a community to propel our mission forward. People can read you like a book, and if you're not passionate about what you're doing each and every day, it will shine through. Be genuine with your team, be genuine with the donors in your community, be genuine with your volunteers, steward them, thank them, and just always be yourself, be true to yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stephanie Kirkathy to the stage. Before lunch, we want to honor those no longer in our midst. Their contributions will endure forever. We remember their lives. Thank you to everybody who sent in pictures, stories, testimonies, names of people in our industry and people who've helped out their communities in so many ways, those who've passed away in 2017 and 2018. As you view colleagues, friends, and community leaders who have passed away, please reflect on their impact on you as individuals, your organizations, and the community at large. And maybe during lunch at your tables, reflect on the individuals and tell some of the wonderful stories while they lived and the impact that they had. So here now is our inaugural NPD memorial video honoring those who died in 2017 and 2018.
Yeah, we lost some incredible people, but we are still here to continue on their work. So today we're going to go on with the program next by inviting up to the stage lead pastor of One Church Empowerment Center, Jathan K. Austin, who will provide us with the ecumenical blessing for our time together. Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Austin.
Thank you. If we could just take a moment and just bow our heads, this is an important opportunity for us to reflect on our faith. It's a very important quote that I like that says, "Give without remembering and receive without forgetting." Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great opportunity to come together. We give thanks for all of those involved in this wonderful National Philanthropy Day luncheon to give us the opportunity to dream, to transform, and invest. Bless all the members who willingly give their time, their skill to raising funds and communicating the message of love for humankind. We thank you for their dedication, their enthusiasm, and their skill. We thank you, O Father, for their decisions that would be made on how the money will be spent and how the money will be raised. Give them judgment and discernment so that the funds that are raised will go to continue to power this powerful mission of loving all. Loving Father, we thank you that once again, you've been so generous to all of us. You've given us life, and this life more abundantly. So we thank you for the success of this event. Help us to appreciate the people that are close to us, the sacrifices that they've made, and how far we've come. We give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Austin. So at this time, I'm sure you guys are like, where's lunch? At this time, we're going to go ahead and take a brief break for lunch. I want to remind you that at the time when you checked in, you were given these meal cards. If you could set them out in front of your plate so that our incredible JW Marriott staff know what you ordered today, that would be perfect. And with no further ado, we'll be back in a few moments. You all enjoy your lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome back. We want to try to stay on schedule. We know many of you just received your lunches, so obviously please enjoy eating while we're presenting up here. So I wanted to take a brief moment to talk about the Association of Fundraising Professionals. How many AFP members are here in the room today, just by a show of hands? All right, wow, okay, that is fantastic. If you are not a member, we strongly encourage you to join, and there is a $50 off promotion going on right now. There should be coupons on your table for that. If not, it's on the AFP West Michigan website, so we would love to have you, encourage you to become members as well, too. At your seats when you arrived, you have a copy of this fabulous 2018-2019 Giving Guide by Gemini Publications. This has been a tradition for years, and every year it seems to get bigger and brighter and bolder. And thank you for those of you who purchase advertising in it too. Take some time to look through that as well. One of the new things we put in this year, starting on page 12, the prior awardees for National Philanthropy Day Awards going all the way back to 1987. So there's a lot of history in there as well too. But at this point, I wanted to introduce Jen Maximowski to come up to the stage right now, just to give a quick overview of the Giving Guide and some of the work that they've done with Gemini Media. So please welcome Jen to the stage.
Good afternoon. What a pleasure it is to be here with all of you today. On behalf of the Grand Rapids Business Journal, we're delighted to join you all in support of National Philanthropy Day and the West Michigan chapter of Association of Fundraising Professionals. Located at each of your seats, like he just mentioned, you'll find the Grand Rapids Business Journal's Giving Guide. It's published annually by the Business Journal in partnership with AFP. The Giving Guide highlights local nonprofits, the region's fundraising professionals, and connects the needs of West Michigan's not-for-profit organizations with business community resources. Inside, you will also meet the amazing award winners being recognized today. The Grand Rapids Business Journal wholeheartedly supports the goal of National Philanthropy Day. It encourages us to reflect on the meaning of charitable giving and philanthropy, and the endless daily contributions made by individuals and organizations to benefit countless causes and missions. By highlighting the NPD award winners, We help create an environment that builds stronger communities in which local businesses thrive, supporting the health and the well-being of area service agencies, charities, arts organizations, health resources, and other beneficial organizations that help improve the lives of so many people in our communities. We're only strong as our weakest links, and connecting area needs with available resources is where the power of our Business Journal audience is key. The Giving Guide is an essential tool for area nonprofits to communicate their missions and goals, to seek volunteers and donations, and most importantly, to share their accomplishments. It helps those who are unsure how to give, who to give to, and what to give and how much to give. The guide contains helpful information and how-to articles and is a valuable resource throughout the year. Nonprofits play a huge role in meeting critical needs in the region, and the Giving Guide showcases their goals, their progress, governance, and current initiatives. We believe you will be impressed with the current initiatives and gratified by the truly amazing collection of organizations contained in these pages. They work tirelessly to make our region a better place. Grand Rapids Business Journal is proud to partner with the organizations, and we encourage you to read, learn, act, and repeat. We believe in building stronger communities. If you are looking for new ideas and ways to engage, look no further than inside this edition of GRBJ's Giving Guide as a driver of positive community change. May we continue dreaming, investing, and transforming West Michigan. Thank you.
Let's give one more applause for Ms. Jen McCathmowski. I see you guys are chowing down. The food looks really good. I can't wait to actually get to taste it. But I also enjoyed getting to talk to all of you all, and if I haven't met you yet, I'm going to continue to circle the room until I get to meet you. Before we go forward, I want to take a moment to again thank more of our sponsors. Today we have some leadership sponsors in the room, and I want to identify them. If you could give them a round of applause at the end. We've got today Aquinas College, the Battle Creek Community Foundation, Grand Valley State University, Laker for a lifetime, Canary Consulting, Lake Michigan Credit Union, J. Melito and Associates, St. Mary's Foundation, and Steelcase. A round of applause for our sponsors, please.
All right, so let's continue with our awards. Our fifth award today is the President's Award. Honors an individual or organization that clearly exemplifies the spirit of philanthropy. It's given at the sole discretion of the chapter president. This year's awardee is someone who has exemplified the Dream, Invest, Transform mantra throughout her entire career. This year's awardee is Louise Punky Edison of the West Michigan Center for Arts and Technology, WMCAT. And let's enjoy a brief video about Punky right now.
Philanthropy to me is a gift with intentional impact. I think a lot of us think of that philanthropy needs to be big projects, big gifts, big money, and I don't. If more of us thought of ourselves as philanthropists and empowered by the gifts we make, I think more people would understand that every gift makes a difference. My proudest professional achievement has been working with WMCAT and all of our friends and supporters on our capital campaign that allowed us to move into our new space this summer. All of us have big issues, big challenges that we're working on, and trying to do it by ourselves is tough. I am not a fan of nonprofits competing against each other, and I am a fan of nonprofits being more collaborative with each other and with other sectors. We sometimes feel that we're going it alone, and if you share, there's more opportunity for nonprofits to connect, not only with other nonprofits, but also with other sectors, and that in so doing, together we can move the needle on some of these big issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Punky Edison, the President's Award winner.
Is the Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award. This next award recognizes service by an individual or group of young people who demonstrate outstanding commitment to the community through direct financial support, development of charitable programs, volunteering, and leadership in philanthropy. This year's Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award winner is the Grand Rapids Community Foundation Youth Grant Committee, steered by Janine Couch. And ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy a short video about their work.
Philanthropy to me is beyond time, talent, and treasure. So it is traditionally thought of in that way, but I really think philanthropy to me means being a servant leader in all of the spaces that you show up. And so it's showing up with your time, but with a servant's heart. It's showing up with your treasure with a servant's heart. And so by that, I really mean it's thinking beyond just doing good for people, but it's thinking about you as a resource to people. And so it's thinking about how you can not only do good for people, but think about how you are really able to be an inspiration to people so that they can do good for themselves. One of my main responsibilities is to help allocate our resources from the Community Foundation, and a lot of those resources are grants. But I also oversee our Youth Grant Committee, so I help to empower them to also distribute some of our resources by way of youth grants.
We have meetings where we discuss bills and grants that we want to pass.
Learning about groups in the community that support youth, and then reading grants and deciding who to fund.
So I've gotten to know the community better, just getting to know other youth from different schools.
Yeah, it really opens your eyes and it really changes your perspective on things. People that are in Grand Rapids, all the different experiences that people go through, all the different needs, and that just has broadened my horizons so much.
I gained a lot of leadership from the opportunity. I came in my freshman year and I was really quiet. And now I'm in my senior year and I'm the co-chair of the committee, so that was a cool opportunity for me.
When I was younger, I'd always like to volunteer for different organizations. I didn't really know philanthropy, like the word philanthropy, I guess, like growing up. And like being here, I get to learn about it more.
Learning from other people, learning about their voices, learning about the different organizations throughout Grand Rapids.
I know a lot more people now and how other people feel from around my neighborhood.
My proudest professional achievement is the work that I've been able to do with community listening at the Grand Rapids Community Foundation. So I had an opportunity to lead our organization with doing some listening in the community in a way that we hadn't done before, listening to communities and people that we hadn't heard before, and I really think that was a privilege for me to be able to do that. And the Youth Grant Committee, I would say their biggest achievement has been really grappling with what it means to fund organizations that are controversial. They have funded Planned Parenthood, for example, and they really had to grapple with that and figure out why they were doing it and what impact they were making, how that would impact our community and what that message would send. And I think that in the end they decided to make the grant because it was impacting a forgotten section of youth in the juvenile detention center, and they really saw that as a need that they could help meet with the type of education that they were providing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Grand Rapids Community Foundation Youth Grant Committee and Janine Couch.
And they got to skip school for this too, so isn't that nice? I wanted to take a moment too to recognize the AFP West Michigan Board of Directors, who is in charge of our chapter and does wonderful work in helping promote the philanthropic spirit. So if you're a board member of AFP, please stand so we can briefly acknowledge you as well. Thank you. And our last award of the evening, I keep saying evening, our last award of the day is the West Michigan Chapter Award for Excellence in Fundraising. It recognizes a nonprofit that has developed creative, resourceful, and inspired campaigns, initiatives, projects, or techniques that have grown and increased the organization's fundraising infrastructure, program, and results. This year's awardee is the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors. In 2015, as burn survival rates reached an all-time high of 96%, the Phoenix Society launched a capacity building campaign to meet this demand. The Never Alone campaign has raised $6.5 million already, brought in 900 new donors, invested in expanding the reach and scope of current and new and innovative programming, increasing access to critical resources, and developing infrastructure for impact and sustainability. And I bet you did not know, or many of you might not have known, they are based right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they have a tremendous worldwide impact. So please enjoy now a video, and we'll learn a little bit more about the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors.
I love working at the Phoenix Society and in the nonprofit sector for a couple reasons. One, it's an opportunity to grow personally as well as professionally. When you work with people that we do on a day-to-day basis, you learn about loss and grief and life. We know that there's still a big gap between surviving a burn injury and thriving after a burn injury, and it's coming together to build that bridge.
In 1963, it all started with a crash, and one man who emerged from that wreckage, a burn survivor. Soon, he discovered the incredible power of friendship and support for others like him, and realized that community was greater than suffering alone. And so, the Phoenix Society rose from his experience. Today, the Phoenix Society has grown into a global community of survivors, their families, first responders, and healthcare professionals. It's the world's largest community of its kind. Our stories and our hope have intertwined into something greater than the sum of its parts. By pulling with the full force of our combined experience, we've set into motion incredible change. We're working to make sure survivors around the world have access to quality burn care. We're helping advance medical research and programs to enhance long-term quality of life. We're working to make every home, every school, and every workplace safer, and prevention measures more effective. We're empowering survivors with the support they need during the journey of lifelong recovery. And we're ensuring every survivor has a shoulder to lean on and a friend who has traveled this road before them, so no one ever has to go through what we've been through alone. Each year, 11 million people around the globe will receive medical attention due to a burn injury. Of the 40,000 hospitalized in the U.S., 96% of those treated in burn centers will survive. But survival isn't enough. Our growing community is working to help survivors see that their courage is greater than their obstacles. We've been to darker places than most can imagine. We've displayed more strength and courage than most will ever need. Our shared struggle has united us as a formidable force for change. We are a movement, and our future is greater than our past. This is our rally cry. We are greater than.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage representatives from the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, Executive Director Amy Acton, and Never Alone campaign co-chairs Howard Tellepson and Tony Gonzalez.
We like to make an entrance.
No, you did. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Okay. Come on over. All right, thank you so much. Congratulations, you guys. You can go either way. Either way.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, another moment that I know you all have been waiting for tonight, because we have a phenomenal keynote speaker who is here today to grace us with some incredible information. So today's keynote speaker, Dan Pallotta, is an activist, humanitarian, author, and builder of movements. He is a pioneer in the national effort to transform the way our culture evaluates the character and impact of nonprofit organizations. His iconic TED Talk on philanthropy has been viewed more than 4.5 million times. And I'm sure I'm a lot of those times myself, I'm gonna be honest. But it is one of the 20 most commented on TED Talks of all time. It's been translated into 27 different languages and continues to be viewed over 1,000 times every day. Dan is also the author of Uncharitable: How Restraints on Nonprofits, Their Potential. His newest book is Charity Case: How the Nonprofit Community Can Stand Up for Itself and Really Change the World. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. described this book as an Apollo program for American philanthropy and the nonprofit sector. Go get that book. Without any further delay, please join me in welcoming today's keynote and one of my personal heroes, Dan Pallotta.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? Great. Thank you, Denavia. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Catherine, everyone at AFP for inviting me to be here today. Thanks to all of you for coming out to listen to what I have to say. You know, I'm always moved that people like you, who already do so much to make a difference in your communities, would take time out of what I know have to be really busy schedules to be here today to explore how can we make an even greater difference. How can we take it up a few levels? You know, you do not have to be here. I know that everyone in this room already does enough for your community. The fact that you're here to try and figure out how can I do more, how can I do it better, and to celebrate others who are making a difference is a testament to who you are as a human being. It's a testament to your commitment to civil society. It's a testament to your commitment to possibility as opposed to predictability. And as a person who's really committed to possibility, I have to say the world would be a really lonely place without people like you. So thank you for being who you are. It's a privilege to be here with you today. Some of you that have seen the TED Talk I did on philanthropy know that I happen to have triplets. Sometimes I tell people I have triplets. They say, really? How many? Sometimes people ask me, how are the kids? How old are they? What do they look like now? This is what they look like now. That's Ryder and Sage and Annalisa. This is what I looked like before the kids were born. This is what I look like now. So I want to spend the time we have together today talking about our dreams for the world, our dreams for this community. Dreams maybe that we've forgotten, dreams that maybe we're embarrassed to say we have because that little voice in our head tells us they're too big, or you're too big for your britches to be thinking a dream like that, to be dreaming a dream like that. And I want to talk specifically about the dysfunctional rule book by which the nonprofit sector is expected to operate that actually estranges us from our dreams. It doesn't just keep us from dreaming. It's so distracting that it actually keeps us from thinking about dreaming. And I want to start with some uncomfortable domestic social statistics, beginning with poverty. Poverty has remained stuck at 11 to 15% of the U.S. population ever since the 1970s. It's now estimated to be about 14% of the population. There are 18.5 million Americans living in deep poverty, which is defined as 50% below the federal poverty threshold. 21% of America's children live in households with incomes below the federal poverty threshold, and a lot of people think the federal poverty threshold is too conservative by half, and that the number could be as high as 40% of America's kids living in households with incomes below the federal poverty threshold. There are 5 million more children living in poverty today in the United States than there were back in the 1960s when Lyndon Johnson launched the war on poverty. Or if you want to look at something like the adult illiteracy rate in the U.S., it was at 14% in 1992. 11 years later, no change, still at 14%. 11 years after that, no change, still at 14%. The suicide rate in the last 18 years has increased about 50% in the United States. Despite decades of talking about breast cancer, we've barely made a dent in the number of women who die of breast cancer in the United States every year. The figure was about 43,000 in 1992. Last year, about 40,000 American women died of breast cancer. And we could go on and on looking at issue after issue and see the same pattern. And you can look at some of the statistics, like the breast cancer statistic, that are articulated numerically, and you could say, well, they're actually getting better as a percentage of the population. Yeah, but at the pace of molasses. I mean, this is not the rate of change any of us were hoping for back in 1992, and it's certainly not a rate of change, I think, about which any of us would start jumping up and down with excitement if someone told us, hey, this is the way it's going to look 20 years from now, too, 30 years from now as well. And then critics say, well, look, it's not fair for you to bring up all of these dramatic social statistics on these gigantic social problems and somehow lay responsibility for them at the door of the nonprofit sector. These problems are ultimately the responsibility of government. Which raises the question, well, then why does the nonprofit sector exist? You know, is it here just for show? Is it here just to make people feel good? Is it here just to act as a bandage on these problems, never to actually dream of their eradication? And I think we have to confront the fact that government is not solving these problems, and it's not as if government has a right of first refusal, right? No one can attempt a daring initiative at eradicating one of these problems until government has had at it for 200 years. And so while Google has completely disrupted the way the world gets its information, and Apple is disrupting industry after industry every year, whether it's the phone or the watch or the credit card industry or the way we watch television. And Uber has disrupted the taxi industry, and Facebook has done what Facebook has done to the way we socialize with one another and to the way we consume news. These are teenagers in their dorm rooms taking their wildest dreams, their most audacious dreams, dreaming with zero embarrassment about the level at which they're dreaming. Zero embarrassment about the amount of money it's going to take to make those dreams come true. Using that powerful combination of their audacious dreams and capital to fundamentally alter the world as we know it, quickly and forever. I think the profound question that confronts all of us in the nonprofit sector, all of us who give to it, all of us who care about it, is, wait a minute, are we, too, not entitled to dream daring dreams on the scale that Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos are dreaming them, of eradicating one of these social problems in our lifetime? And I think a fundamental issue, it's not always true, but it's true on the big issues, and when it's true, it's fundamental, is the issue of scale. These social challenges are massive in scale. Our organizations are miniature up against the massive scale of these social problems, and with the best of intentions, not even knowing we're doing it, we actually have a belief system that keeps our organizations miniature. We have two rule books. We have one for the nonprofit sector and one for the rest of the economic world. And I want to look at how having this double standard fundamentally undermines the nonprofit sector in a number of critical areas. And the first is in the area of reward. So in the for-profit sector, the more value you produce, the more money you can make, pretty much without limit. You know, if you're a real estate sales agent, for example, you get paid on the basis of every home that you sell. Nobody comes along after you've sold 5 houses and says, okay, that's it, enough money for you. It would be immoral for you to make any more money. You have to keep selling houses, but we can't give you any more money. But that's exactly how we treat things in the nonprofit sector. We don't like nonprofit organizations to use money to motivate people to produce more in social change. We have a visceral reaction to the idea that anyone would make very much money helping other people. What's interesting is that we don't have a visceral reaction to the notion that people would make a whole lot of money not helping other people. You want to make $50 million selling sugar water to kids in the developing world? Go for it. We'll put you on the cover of Fortune magazine. We'll celebrate the beautiful modern home you've had designed on the pages of Architectural Digest. We'll be really curious about who did the curtains and who did the interior design. But you want to pay someone, God forbid, say $2 million, someone with a track record for accomplishing really difficult things in complex situations to, say, end poverty in Michigan or in Grand Rapids, and you and the leader are considered mercenaries and parasites and opportunists. And we think of this as our code of ethics. We think of this as a good thing without realizing that this code has a really powerful unintended side effect, which is it offers a stark, mutually exclusive choice between doing very well for yourself and your family in the for-profit sector or doing good for the world, and probably not doing so well for yourself and your family in the nonprofit sector to the brightest minds coming out of our best universities, and sends God only knows how many people who could make a huge difference in the nonprofit sector marching directly into the for-profit sector every single year because they're simply unwilling to make the kind of lifelong economic sacrifice. This is not a one-time donation, right? Lifelong economic sacrifice that this ethic requires of them. Business Week did a survey in which they're trying to understand the effects on compensation of having a business degree, an MBA degree. So they studied MBAs just 10 years out of business school at an average age of 38. And in that survey, the median compensation for a Stanford MBA just 10 years out of business school was $400,000. For Harvard, it was $380,000. Meanwhile, the median compensation for a male CEO of a $3 to $5 million charity in the United States, so not tiny, was $175,000. A female CEO of the same size charity, $140,000. The median compensation for the CEO of a $5 million plus hunger charity in the US was $80,000, and a $5 million plus youth charity, it was the same, about $80,000. Now, there's no way you're going to get a lot of people with $400,000 annual earning capacity to make a $320,000 sacrifice every single year to become the CEO of that hunger charity. And you're not going to do it by appealing to them on the basis of purpose or meaning or the goodness of their hearts. Why? Is it because they have no goodness in their hearts? No, I don't think so. I think it's because the math here is inescapable. You know, it's literally cheaper for that person to donate $100,000 every single year to the hunger charity. So feel like they're doing the job of the CEO of the hunger charity in addition to their day job. Save $50,000 on their state and federal taxes as a result of the deduction, so still be roughly $280,000 a year ahead of the game. Now be called a philanthropist in the community because they just donated $100,000 to charity, probably sit on the board of the hunger charity, probably supervise the poor SOB who decided to become the CEO of the hunger charity, right? And have a lifetime of this kind of popular praise and decision-making authority and earning potential still ahead of them. Now, on this point, critics have said, look, well, you're missing the big point, which is there is enormous good feeling, psychic benefit associated with being able to help other people. And it's that psychic benefit that gives the nonprofit sector a competitive advantage over the for-profit sector at attracting these people. Doesn't say anything about, well, what's going to keep those people or what's going to motivate those people to produce even more, but okay, at attracting those people. And my thinking on that has been, look, there's a hell of a lot of psychic benefit associated with making $400,000 a year. And here's where the real psychic benefit comes in terms of meaning and purpose. Being able, if you want, to write a check for $25,000 or $35,000 to charity. Probably get your name put on the building of the charity for your children and your grandchildren to see. The CEO is never going to see their name on the building of the hunger charity. And if you want to say it's the psychic benefit that gives the nonprofit sector an advantage over the for-profit sector at attracting and keeping, incentivizing great people, you're saying there's no psychic benefit in the for-profit sector. People who work in the for-profit sector go to work absolutely miserable every single day. People at Apple, they go to work miserable every single day. A deep sense of meaninglessness and purposelessness in their lives, right? No sense that the iPad is having any impact on education. No sense that the iPhone is doing anything to make a difference in the lives of the blind. Or I don't know if you saw the launch of the new Apple Watch Series 4 about 6 weeks ago. That thing can do a clean EKG in 30 seconds and send the results to your doctor. No sense on the part of people at Apple who worked on that that's going to do anything to reduce mortality from heart disease. I was at the TED conference where the Google autonomous driving people were. All they talked about, their whole TED talk, was how many lives that thing was going to save. That technology was going to save. Or Whole Foods. No sense that they're doing anything to help sustainable local farming. Or Lego. You know, my 11-year-old son loves to play with Lego. No sense on the part of the people who wake up and go to work at Lego every day that they're doing anything to develop the imaginations of children. So if you think about it objectively, well, there are just all kinds of places that young people can go and have a tremendous experience that they're making a contribution to humanity and get stock options as well, leaving the nonprofit sector with increasingly little in the way of competitive advantage for attracting, but certainly for keeping and incentivizing those people. These are the salaries of the 5 highest paid executives at popular health charities in the United States for 2016. That's muscular dystrophy, leukemia, and lymphoma, Susan Komen for the Cure, American Cancer Society, and the Alzheimer's Association. And you can see in that case it goes up to $856,000. And you look at that and you say, wow, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of psychic benefit. So what's your argument, Dan? And you can kind of hear the evening news anchor saying, you thought your donations were going to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease. Well, our investigative team has uncovered that they are going to pay the more than $500,000 pay packages of these fat cats running the organization. And with that narrow little framing that doesn't say anything about the value that's getting produced for that money, or for that matter, the value that might not get produced if you only allotted $100,000 for that CEO, we as a general public get justifiably enraged. But let's look at those salaries on a different scale. Let's compare them to the 5 highest paid executives in popular private health insurance. So we're still talking about little kids with leukemia, right? Those little slivers you kind of can't see on the left anymore, those are the outrageous charity leader salaries we were just looking at. Meanwhile, the head of Anthem was paid $16 million, United Health 18, Cigna 22, not including the equity they have in those enterprises. So for that period, the charity executives combined made a total of about $3 million. The insurance executives almost $92 million, or 30 times more. But these are the salaries we want Anderson Cooper to do his investigative reporting on. I mean, it is an upside-down world that values the management and the affordability, and some might say the institutionalization of disease 30 times greater than its eradication. As simply measured by the amounts of money our culture feels comfortable investing in leadership for the two different efforts. Now, on this point, critics have said, well, look, this is an apples to oranges comparison. You might not like that those corporate executives make that kind of money, but they're running multi-billion-dollar enterprises. You can't compare them to these piddly little charities. Well, the American Red Cross is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Congress raked their CEO, Gail McGovern, over the coals last summer because she makes $500,000. Every story you saw on Hurricane Harvey said you should think twice before donating to the Red Cross because their CEO gets a $500,000 salary. The Boys and Girls Clubs is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. When Wolf Blitzer, who, by the way, makes $4 million a year, reported that their CEO, Roxanne Spillett, made a little over $800,000 one year, without reporting that $300,000 of it was back retirement money she was owed. She was forced to resign, despite the fact that she had tripled their revenues from $500 million a year to $1.5 billion a year, and she had doubled the number of kids served. So imagine if you go out and in response to the outcry, you go find a $200,000 CEO and you spread it all over the news that you've just saved $600,000 that's no longer going to fat cat salaries. It can now go to the boys and girls. And everyone's happy about that. But what if this new CEO is incapable of increasing revenue? So you're saving $600,000 a year in salary and you are losing $1 billion a year for children in lost revenue. Now, just so you don't think that this is a liberal rant on corporate CEO compensation, let's look at the charity leader salaries as compared to 5 very liberal television celebrities. So there are the little slivers of charity leader salaries again. There's Anderson Cooper at $12 million, Stephen Colbert at 15, George Stephanopoulos at 15, Judge Judy, $47 million a year. I checked that from 3 different sources because I could not believe it could be true. She is good, right? Ellen DeGeneres, $77 million a year. So for that period, the charity leaders combined made a total of $3 million. The television celebrities, $165 million. The liberal television celebrities were 55 times more. Now, I'm not being ridiculous. I'm not saying let's start paying management in our nonprofit organizations as much as we pay television celebrities and absent any effort to measure the value that's being produced. What I'm saying is stop this ridiculous double standard. Stop treating money childishly as if it were some kind of a mortal sin in the nonprofit sector. Stop preventing the sector from using money in any strategic shape or form to motivate the production of more value above and beyond what the goodness of a person's heart will do. Because the goodness of everyone's hearts here is already there. But the goodness of a person's heart is only going to take on so much risky innovation, where there's a chance that things could fail and they could lose their job, without there being some economic upside if things go well. The goodness of a person's heart is only going to take on so many more hours than they're already working, without there being some multiple in the compensation. On this point, critics say, well, this is a dangerous argument. You know, we don't want our leaders in civil society to start emulating the compensation practices of corporations or the entertainment industry. Well, we have a long way to go before we got to worry about anything remotely close to that. Here's what happens if I double the charity leaders' salaries. Did you see anything happen? That's a different slide than the one you were just looking at a nanosecond ago. Triple the charity leaders' salaries. Quadruple the charity leaders' salaries. I mean, can you imagine quadrupling, your leadership team's salaries? So in a world where some people might say, yeah, I listened to that guy, he made some sense. I could see us bumping up our CEO's comp 6% over the next 5 years if she actually achieves something. Here's what happens if you bump it up 400% at dinner time. You still have this unspeakable inequity. So then people say, well, look, it makes a lot of sense, but it just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right. Money is contaminating. We don't want people's motives getting mixed up. We don't want them to start caring more about the money than they do about children and curing disease. Well, that's funny. We don't worry about money contaminating motives of Major League Baseball pitchers who we pay millions of dollars to win baseball games, and they sure seem like they want to win baseball games. I mean, if you watch the World Series, those pitchers sure seem like they want to win the World Series. We don't worry about money contaminating the motives of Adele, who we pay millions of dollars to write beautiful songs, and she keeps writing more and more beautiful songs. We don't worry about money contaminating the motives of David Hockney, who we pay millions of dollars to produce beautiful art, and he keeps producing more and more beautiful art. Why do we think charity's any different? Is there something in the DNA of people who are drawn to this type of work? So when left with nowhere else to go, people will blame everything on the IRS. They'll just throw up their hands and they'll say, well, you just can't pay people much money in charity, shut up, it's just against the law. That's not true. The head football coach at the nonprofit University of Michigan last year made $9 million. The head basketball coach at nonprofit Duke University last year, $7.3 million. Each of the 10 highest paid college sports coaches at nonprofit, tax-exempt, taxpayer-supported, each of them last year took home at least $6.15 million. So you remember a minute ago I showed you the head of the Alzheimer's Association making $856,000, and we all have a little bit of an uneasy feeling about that. You know, I still do, no matter how many times I show the slide. But utterly no stomach reaction to the idea that college football coaches are making $6, $7, $9 million a year in a tax-exempt setting where some kids can't afford to go to college. Yeah, well, look, that's just what we expect college football coaches to make. Why? Well, because we pay them on the basis of the value they produce, as best we can measure it. You know, do they have a winning team? Does that winning team bring more interest to the university? Does it up alumni donations? Well, if we can find a way to measure the value that college football coaches produce and pay them on the basis of that value, surely we can find ways to measure the value produced by people trying to end hunger and racism and injustice and domestic violence and pay them on the basis of the value they produce as well. The second area of discrimination is advertising and marketing. Here again, the for-profit sector gets the advantage where we tell it, you go spend to your heart's delight on advertising until the last dollar no longer produces any value. But we don't like our donations spent on advertising and charity. Our attitude to the charity is, look, if you can get the advertising donated at 3:30 in the morning or on a billboard behind a flourishing grove of trees, right? I'm fine with that. Fine with that, but I don't want my donation spent on advertising. I want it to go to the cause. As if the money spent on advertising or other forms of advertising like fundraising couldn't produce dramatically greater sums of money for the cause. In the 1990s, my company created the grueling, epic, heroic, long-distance AIDS ride bicycle journeys and these beautiful 60-mile-long breast cancer 3-day walks. And over the course of 9 years, we had 182,000 people ride or walk in one of those events. 3 million Americans donated to the events. We were one of the very first Harvard Business School case studies on social enterprise. We raised $581 million just in that period alone. To date, these events have raised about $2 billion, all based on the simple idea that people are tired of being asked to do the least they can possibly do on behalf of the causes that have really broken them. That people yearn to be asked to do the most they can possibly do. But they have to be asked. And we got that many people to ride and to walk by taking out full-page ads in the New York Times and the LA Times and the Washington Post, by buying primetime television and radio advertising and paying full rate for it so we could get those ads placed where we wanted, when we wanted, directed at the audience we wanted them directed to, in the same way Coca-Cola gets to do it. Everyone in this room knows how many people we would have had walking if we tried to do it with free social media the way most nonprofits are. We would have had 2 people walking, right? One of whom would have been the one that arranged for all the free social media. Right? In a liberal 2006 estimate, the health and human services portion of the nonprofit sector spent about $1.5 billion on marketing versus $729 billion for the rest of the economy. Or another way to think about that is, for every message you see out in your day today, when you leave here, for every one message, if you even see one, but for every one message you see from some charity asking you to part with your money to help them, you will see 479 messages asking you to part with your money for chocolate or cell phones or cellular service or insurance or a new Princess cruise. Or if you want to look at it on a micro level, in 2016, Save the Children spent $5.4 million on advertising trying to bring in more donations so they could save more children. McDonald's, $1.4 billion trying to build market demand for kids to buy more Happy Meals. Or candy and cosmetics. Susan Komen last 2016 spent about $1.2 million on advertising, and you can hear a sensational reporter saying that's unconscionable, flashy advertising, money that should have gone to breast cancer. Meanwhile, L'Oreal spent $1.9 billion trying to build market demand for people to buy more cosmetics and beauty products. Or candy and malnutrition. Feeding America in 2016 spent $3.2 million on advertising, trying to grow their mission. M&M's $1.1 billion trying to build market demand for kids to buy more candy. Those numbers are important in light of this overarching contextual fact. Charitable giving has remained stuck at 2% of GDP in the United States ever since we started measuring it in the 1970s. That's really important, because it tells us that in 45 plus years, the nonprofit sector hasn't been able to take any market share away from the for-profit sector. You know, the nonprofit sector exists to correct these massive inequities, right? So we need it to grow relative to the for-profit sector, not for both to keep growing, leaving that gap. But the nonprofit sector can't grow, it can't take market share. How could one sector ever take market share away from another sector if you've told it you cannot market? John Kenneth Galbraith, the famous liberal Harvard economist, used to say that the for-profit sector creates desires. It creates wants that you didn't know you had. You didn't know you needed an iPhone XS Max until about 4 weeks ago. Pretty soon you are going to have an iPhone XS Max, if you can say it. He said that first the for-profit sector creates the product, and then through the massive engines of marketing and PR, it creates the desire for that product. It would be considered malfeasance for Apple to launch the new iPhone without an adequate advertising budget to, number one, let the general public know, hey, the new iPhone is finally here, and two, look at all the good things the iPhone can do for you. But you all are somehow expected to let the general public know about all of the good that you do so that they get excited to give you more money so you can do more good without ever actually spending a penny to tell the general public about the good that you do. I was in Charlotte last summer. They have huge problems with economic mobility there, worst in the nation. They commissioned a study with consultants and local businesses and universities and the nonprofit community to look at it. And they produced this thick report. And on the cover of the report, they had this question: how do we create a community of caring? As if this were some kind of a philosophical, rhetorical question never to actually be answered. How do we create a community of caring? It's not rocket science. The same way we created a community of consumption. We invested in it massively, and we continue to invest in it massively every single day. And if we somehow think we're going to get the public to care more about hunger and injustice than they care about beer and burgers, under this dynamic, we're kidding ourselves. The third area of discrimination is risk-taking in the fundraising area. I'm not talking about all the risks that charities take on the program side of things. I'm talking about risks on new fundraising ideas. Here again, the for-profit sector gets the advantage. Disney can make a $200 million movie that flops, and they did with A Wrinkle in Time, and someone did with John Carter, and someone did with Ben-Hur. And it doesn't occur to anyone leaving the movie theater to call the Attorney General about it. But you do a little, $2 million community fundraiser here in Grand Rapids, some new idea for, say, the poor. You didn't have any data on it. You knew the only way to figure out if it was going to work was to actually do it. In the same way, the only way Disney knows if those movies are going to work is they actually have to make them. And in your case, it isn't an out-of-the-park home run the first go-around. It doesn't produce a 70% profit back to the cause the first time you do it, and your character's called into question. What happened to all that money all those people donated? Innovation, you can't escape the word innovation these days. Innovation comes down to something really simple. If you prohibit failure, you just killed it. You just killed innovation. Now, if you kill innovation in the area of charitable fundraising, you can't raise more charitable funds, not significantly. If you can't raise more money, you can't grow. If you can't grow, you can't solve these social problems that are many orders of magnitude larger than you are. Fourth area is time. Again, for-profit sector gets the advantage. Amazon went for 6 years without returning any money to investors, and investors had patience. They knew this was a long-term proposition. But if a nonprofit organization ever had a dream of building Amazon-like scale, that meant for 6 years, imagine this for a moment, no money is going to the cause. It's all going to be invested in generating public awareness and building donor pipelines and acquiring new donors so that in year 7, something magnificent at big scale can happen. We would expect people to be indicted. And the last area is profit itself. So the for-profit sector can pay people money in order to get their money, to test out all of their wonderful new ideas. But you can't pay profits in a nonprofit sector. So the nonprofit sector is left with the donation as its only financial instrument. Donors don't want their donations spent on risky, forward-looking things. So the for-profit sector monopolizes the multi-trillion-dollar capital markets, all of this play money. Hey, Elon Musk, you want to start Tesla? Sure, here's a few billion dollars. Oh, you want to start SpaceX and try to go to the moon at the same time? Sure, here's a few more $1 billion for you. Oh, you guys want to start a competitor to the hotel industry, Airbnb? Yeah, here's a few. Snapchat? Yeah, here's some money for you guys. And the nonprofit sector is starved for any kind of experimentation capital, even the big ones with big endowments. I was at Boys Town in Nebraska. They have $1 billion endowment. They cannot touch that money. That money is earmarked for a rainy day. Well, of course, you're going to have rainy days if you never allow the sector to grow. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're always going to need these endowments for rainy days, right? So you put those 5 things together. If you're a nonprofit, you cannot use money to lure talent away from the for-profit sector. That's immoral. You can't advertise to try and grow your organization. That's wasteful. You can't take the kinds of risks the for-profit sector takes, figuring out new ways to raise money from the public. That's irresponsible. You don't have the same amount of time the for-profit sector does to figure out new ways to make money, because if you spend too much time spending money without money coming in, it means you don't really care about the cause, and you don't have a stock market with which to fund any of this, even if you could do it in the first place, and you've just put the nonprofit sector at the most extreme disadvantage to the for-profit sector on every single level, and then we wonder, why aren't these organizations changing the world? Now, I know that the reward, the compensation argument is hard to swallow for some people, and it's controversial, and it makes people feel uncomfortable. So let's for a moment forget about that one. Let's forfeit that argument. Let's say I'm wrong. The critics are right. Money doesn't matter. You can draw from the same talent pool for $50,000 with no bonuses or equity as you can with $400,000 and bonuses and equity. I'm wrong. Critics are right. Money doesn't matter. Now, go tell that person that just took a $350,000 salary cut, you also don't have any money to hire away your friends from business school and law school. You can't have any money to spend on advertising to try and grow the organization. Please do everything the way we have always done it, because if you try something new and it goes wrong, it could damage our reputation. Make everything happen within the 12-month time frame of the Form 990, and you don't have a stock market. But go fulfill your potential, right? If we have any doubts about the effects of this separate rule book, this statistic is sobering. From 1970 to 2009, the number of new nonprofits in the United States that really grew, that crossed the $50 million annual revenue barrier, was 144. 46,000 for-profits crossed it in the same time. So again, our social problems are massive in scale. We don't have organizations generating scale. All of the scale goes to the enterprises that get to play by the more favorable rule book. Now, this separate rule book gets policed by this one really dangerous question, which is, what percentage of my donation goes to the cause versus overhead? And we want the amount going to the cause to be really high and the amount going to overhead to be really low. That makes sense if you don't think about it for about 30 seconds. But if you think about it for 30 seconds, the logic of it begins to go away really quickly. It turns out there are 3 categories of stupidity built directly into this question. The first is it makes us think that overhead is somehow not part of the cause. But it absolutely is, especially if it's being used for growth. Who would say that the growth of the Boys and Girls Clubs isn't related to the cause of the Boys and Girls Clubs? Unless there's fraud going on, okay? But if there's fraud, the overhead measure is not going to tell you about it. It amazes me that regulators continue to ask about overhead to try and figure out who's committing fraud. How do they get overhead figures? They go to the tax forms, they look at the revenue, they look at how much was spent on programs, they do a simple division, and then they figure out the overhead ratio. People committing fraud aren't lining it out in detail on their Forms 990. It's utterly useless for that. It might point out ineptitude, it might point out laziness. More likely than not, it's pointing out the fact that you got a brand new organization that doesn't have donors yet, and it's really expensive for them to raise money. Or you've got a cause, you know, like somebody was telling me about this rare skin disease that affects very few children in the world, versus breast cancer. I mean, you're going to raise money for breast cancer at 3 cents on the dollar. It's going to cost you 90 cents on the dollar to raise money for this. Doesn't mean that you're lazy or inefficient. It just means that you've got a cause that's a lot harder to work out in the general public. Now, this notion that overhead somehow steals from the cause or isn't a critical part of the cause creates this second, much larger problem, which is it forces organizations like all of yours to literally go without the things you need to grow in the interest of meeting all of this cultural pressure to keep your overhead low. So, for example, we've all been taught that nonprofit organizations should spend as little as possible on overhead things like fundraising, represented in silver here, under the theory that, well, look, the less money I spend on silver, the more blue there is, which represents the money for the cause. And that's what I want. I want as much money as possible to go to the cause. And the only way to do that is to shrink that silver sliver day after day, as narrow as I can possibly make it. Well, that's true if it's a depressing world in which the pie can never be made any bigger. But if it's a hopeful world, a logical world in which investments in fundraising actually get more people involved and raise more funds, then we have it completely backwards. And we should be investing a great deal more in fundraising, even if it becomes a larger section of that pie, because fundraising is the one thing that has the potential to make the entire pie bigger, to create enormously greater sums of money for the cause than you could ever hope to achieve by obsessing day after day on shrinking that silver sliver in the previous pie. The simplest way I've been able to figure out how to say it is this: the more of every dollar you want to go to the cause, the fewer dollars for the cause there will be. Similarly, we've all been taught that the bake sale with 5% overhead is morally superior and certainly economically superior to the professional fundraising enterprise with 40% overhead. I mean, look at how much more money is going to the cause with that bake sale, right? Well, it's like a David Copperfield illusion. They show us these pie charts under the umbrella of transparency when in fact they're masking everything. You're missing the most critical piece of information when they show you the pie charts at the same size, which is, what is the actual size of the pies? Who cares if the bake sale only had 5% overhead if the thing is tiny? What if the bake sale only netted $71 for the cause because it made no investment in its scale, and the professional fundraising enterprise netted $71 million because it did? Now, which pie looks more moral and more capable of addressing the problem at the scale at which it exists? And something else, that 40% overhead in red there, that's not like a necessary evil. That's money invested in strengthening civil society. That's money invested in getting people up and off of their couches and out involved in the great issues of their time. The nonprofit sector has to invest in building a stronger civil society. Otherwise, it's always going to be the same 600 people and the same 6,000 donors trying to solve these problems. I'll give you an example. We launched the AIDS Rides with an initial investment of $50,000 in risk capital. It wasn't easy to find in the 1990s when so many people were dying of AIDS and people wanted all their money going to those people, not to some fundraising scheme involving bicycles that hadn't been proven yet. In that case, within 9 years, we multiplied that almost 2,000 times into $108 million net after all expenses and unrestricted money for AIDS services. We then launched the Breast Cancer 3 Days with an initial investment of $350,000 in risk capital. wasn't any easier to find, despite the fact that we had kind of proven the concept of these events with the AIDS rise. Why? Because there's no equivalent of a venture capital market that fundraisers can take their growth plans to. Hey, I want to hire 3 new major gift officers. It's going to cost me $700,000. I think it can raise $5 million. Will you loan me the money? There's no market like that. So if you want to really stimulate the philanthropy in this community, start pooling capital together to fund fundraising growth programs. In that case, within 5 years, we multiplied that 554 times into $194 million net after every penny of expense and unrestricted money for breast cancer research, the most valuable kind of money you can raise. So if you were a philanthropist really interested in breast cancer, you've got to ask yourself, well, what makes more sense? Go find the world's best breast cancer researcher, give her $350,000, insist in an old-fashioned way that every single penny be spent on breast cancer research, and essentially what you're doing is you're purchasing $350,000 worth of breast cancer research and not a penny more. Or go find the world's best breast cancer researcher, give her fundraising department the $350,000 for a carefully vetted plan that could potentially multiply it into $194 million for breast cancer. Even if it didn't multiply by 554 like it did in our case, if it only multiplied by 2, $700,000 is twice as much money for breast cancer research as $350,000. Here's a really powerful example. How many of you heard about Wounded Warrior Project and what a horrible organization they are in the news last year? Yeah, this is any organization that tries to spend more money getting more of the general public involved in an important cause is labeled as fraudulent and scandalous. So Wounded Warrior Project, 15 years ago, they didn't exist, okay? There was no Wounded Warrior Project 15 years ago. As of last year, they represented 40% of private philanthropy for veteran services in the United States. 2006, they were spending $1.5 million on fundraising. It was generating $10 million in revenue, $5.6 million left for programs. Now, if you sat on that board, you'd say, how can we get that overhead down? They decided to ask a different question, a dreamy question. And the question they asked was, how many veterans are there without mental health and job training services? How big would we need to get to serve all of them? How much money would we have to raise and spend on fundraising to do that? That's the question they asked. So 6 years later, they were spending $20 million a year on fundraising. It's generating $200 million a year in revenue with $114 million available for programs. 2015, Wounded Warrior Project spent $74 million on advertising, and that's a big, fat target on their back, right, for the media to say this is the most wasteful veterans organization on the planet. But again, that's $74 million they spent trying to get more Americans giving to veterans causes. That $74 million in fundraising, which was mostly television advertising, generated $400 million in revenue, with $262 million available for veterans, up from $5.6 million just 10 years earlier. This is an example of best practice, yet with the cultural mindset that we have, this is the kind of thing the media keeps crucifying, which is why we don't make the kinds of investments in charitable awareness that we make in Tesla awareness. And the third piece of stupidity is it gives donors really bad information. So if you took the example of 2 soup kitchens, A and B, and A tells you, well, 90 cents of your dollar goes to soup, and B says, well, 70 cents goes to soup. We've all been trained that this is easy. I'm giving my money to Soup Kitchen A. Look at how much more efficient they are. They really respect my donation. They're more like a business. But what if you actually went and visited the soup kitchens and found that Soup Kitchen A is serving lousy soup to not very many people in a rundown facility? Their staff is really rude. Whereas Soup Kitchen B is serving thousands of people a month, hearty, nutritious soup. They do case management. Their staff is well-trained and super friendly, and they're always open. Well, now it's clear, geez, I should have given my money to Soup Kitchen B. So that narrow little question that just obsesses over what was the overhead, what did it cost, how much did they pay their CEO, and never asks a thing about what good is being done and for how many people would have betrayed the donor utterly and completely in choosing the right charity. And then sadly, our nonprofit organizations reinforce all of this by putting the I have low overhead seals of approval on the home pages of their websites, signaling to the general public that low overhead is the holy grail of measuring a charity's character. So here's just one example, Save the Children. There's the universal pie chart showing our low self-esteem and low investment in ourselves. And there's assuring the general public. There's the Charity Navigator seal of approval. Now, about 6 weeks after I gave this TED Talk, 3 of the big evaluating agencies got together and they issued a joint press release to the American public in which they said, "To the donors of America, we write to correct a misconception about what matters when deciding which charity to support. The percent of charity expenses that go to administrative and fundraising costs, commonly referred to as overhead, is a poor measure of a charity's performance. Many charities should spend more on overhead." This was like hell freezing over for Charity Navigator to sign a statement like that. The people in communities served by charities don't need low overhead. They need high performance. Signed, Charity Navigator. Yeah. The Better Business Bureau Wise Giving Alliance and GuideStar. Now, I happen to be gay, and this press release got issued the same week the Supreme Court struck down the Defense of Marriage Act, so I thought I was like living in an alternate universe or something. Darren Walker, the head of the Ford Foundation last year, issued this brave statement: "Nonprofit watchdog groups have equated lower overhead with organizational effectiveness, when in fact the opposite may be true. At Ford, we have been willing participants in this charade. Our policy of 10% overhead on project grants in no way allows for covering the actual cost to administer a project, and to be honest, we've known it." So this is great, but it's going to take a lot more than press releases issued primarily to ourselves. We love to issue press releases to ourselves to change all of this. So what do we do? Well, I think we need to transform the way the donating public thinks about charity. Nothing less than that. We've transformed the way they think about seatbelts, about smoking, about voting rights, about gay marriage. History is just a record of us changing the general public's minds. So we've created something called the Charity Defense Council, and it'll fight for the sector. And we've got a powerful advisory board with the head of the Better Business Bureau Wise Giving Alliance, the head of Heifer International, the head of the Nature Conservancy, the head of Goodwill International. We'll do a few things. One, we'll act as an anti-defamation force for the sector, so we write donor advisories. When the media gets it wrong, we write long-form donor advisories, like we did when the media got the Red Cross's work in Haiti all wrong. We do report cards on as many stories as we can find about charity, and we ask, does the reporter have literacy about capacity building? Do they have literacy about fundraising investment? Do they have literacy about compensation dynamics? Was the headline fair? We'll act as an ad agency for the sector. We've never had an ad agency to speak for us. Remember back in the 1980s, those of you that are old enough, when pork was thought of as this fatty heart attack waiting to happen, and then pork producers got together, they hired an ad agency, they came up with this slogan, "Pork, the other white meat." And now when you eat pork, you think you're being a model of global health, right? If we can change the way people think about pork, we can change the way they think about charity. Yes. You know what pork's slogan is now? Pork. Be inspired by pork. I mean, they've stolen our message right out from under us. So we'll run ads that look like this, someone looking directly into camera, and the headline says, "I'm overhead," right? We've dehumanized overhead. We need to humanize it. "My name is Martin Hodges. I do fundraising for the Breast Cancer Alliance. I'm labeled as a negative to the cause, but without me, there is no cause. My mother died of breast cancer. I'm 100% committed to a cure, and I'm overhead." You can actually buy long sleeve "I'm overhead" t-shirts at the Charity Defense Council website. If you want to show your solidarity. Show your solidarity with the people in your life who are overhead. It actually has message points on the sleeve, so if you don't know what to say, you can literally talk to people about overhead. Or this one, my favorite. This is not complicated stuff. We don't need to labor over how do we convince the general public of these things. This is common sense stuff that your grandmother could understand. This one that asks the general public, do you want to be the only donor? Because when you discourage your favorite charity from spending money on fundraising, you're saying you don't want them to find any other donors. You want them to keep relying on you every year, more and more. That turns people around like really quickly. But we've never spoken to them in that way. Or this one, my favorite, the ultimate emotionally manipulative picture of a little 6-year-old kid with his piggy bank. And the headline says, I'm donating all the money in my piggy bank to the local homeless shelter, and I want them to spend 100% of it on fundraising and administration. Right? Because I want them to grow. The idea that a 6-year-old is wiser about their philanthropy than you are, that might cause some people to think. We started running these digital billboards in Massachusetts that told people driving by, don't ask if a charity has low overhead, ask if it has big impact. In like 2 weeks, it resulted in a front page story, top of the front page of the Boston Globe, about these issues. So it doesn't take a lot of effort to get this conversation started. What it takes is us not being afraid to have it, not being closeted about what we know to be true. And donors want to know this stuff. Donors want their donations maximized for the cause. They don't want them suffocated. They just don't know any better. We started going into communities and taking photographs. We could do it here in Grand Rapids of the overhead heroes and heroines, and they can use those to put them on Facebook or posters in their office or in the dinner program book. You start to see this mosaic of compassion and love and dedication that's been obscured by accounting terminology. I'll close with this. This is a picture of the ribbon on the cover of my book, Uncharitable. I bought this piece of linen at a store in Los Angeles where I was living at the time, and I ripped it apart by the threads, and I found an oil stain on the street, and I ground it in with my shoe until it became, for me, a symbol of desecration, a symbol of the desecration of our dreams and our potential and our promise in this one little lifetime that we have, on the altar of appearances, on the altar of overhead ratios and metrics like that. And I think more than anything else I've said today, more than investing more in fundraising, more than creating a venture fund, more than changing the way the public thinks about these things, we need to return to the wild-eyed, audacious dreams that we had that got us into this work in the first place, that excited us when we felt more powerful than these problems that confronted us, when we wanted to engage everyone in them, when we felt every bit as entitled to our dreams in their full measure of a better world as Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg feel entitled to theirs. None of us wants our gravestones to read, well, we kept charity overhead low. We wanted to read that we changed the world, and if we would change the way we think about these things, that's exactly what we could do. If you'd like to reach me, you can get me at Twitter there, or you can reach me via email there. One of the things people ask me a lot, especially when it's a lot of nonprofit staff leadership, is how do I get my board to think this way? People were asked, how many of you were wondering, how do I get my board to think this way? And people had been asking me that for years. So the year before last, we started this beautiful one-day program called the Boulder Board Training, where we disenthrall board members of all these old ideas and we get the organizations dreaming again. So we just did one in Austin, Texas, and that's Boston, and that's Boston #2, and that's Brisbane, Australia, and that's Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that's Dallas, Texas, and that's Las Vegas, and that's New York, and Southwest Florida a couple weeks ago, and just on Saratoga Springs on Monday, I was in Dublin to do the biggest one we've ever done for 300 people there. Little country, Ireland, 5 million people. I always thought Ireland was as big as Italy or France with 60 or 70 million people. Only 5 million people in Ireland, and they got 300 people to come to their Boulder Board training. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to boulderboard.com. I thank you very, very much for all that you do in the world to make a difference. Thank you very much for listening so attentively. And thank you, Steve and Catherine, again, and everyone at AFP. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
To that extent, I want to thank everyone who came out today. We want to thank all of the award recipients, the organizations for the work that you do, the volunteers and the people who put the blood, sweat, and tears into philanthropy and into making West Michigan what it is every day. If you enjoyed the videos as much as I did, I want to thank 616 Media, Justin over here, for being one of our sponsors and also doing a great job with that. Thank you to the Association of Fundraising Professionals. I want to let you all know, spoiler alert, you will get a link for a survey. Click it, give us your feedback. Steve and I are going to take this show on the road, and we're going to do it again. And so join us again next year. And that's all for today. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, it's Stephen Donavia one more time, and we just wanted to say we had a fantastic time at National Philanthropy Day this year. Thank you to everyone who helped us with the setup, with the execution of the event, and congratulations once again to the awardees.
And we want to know if you had a fantastic time too. So we've included a survey below. Click that link and send us your feedback so we can make National Philanthropy Day bigger and better for West Michigan every year. Give us your thoughts, and we'll see you guys next year.
Bye.
Bye? What did you do? Why did you do that? Why did you say it like that?
I have no idea.